Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Psychology and Spirituality, a bridge to a better life discussion. During our weekly episodes, we explore the intersection of spirituality and psychology, and as a result, capture timeless wisdom contained in both fields. I would like to welcome all of you who joined today to this space where we bring inner truth in daily life, right? Our day-to-day life and how we feel. I'm your host, Marcia Trajano, and with me are two incredible voices, Dr. Anahy Fonseca, physician, spiritual scholar, and Jussara Korngold, spiritist speaker, author, and our podcast co-host. They join me here today, and together we will dive into this topic that, to me specifically, is very significant, right? It's a topic that touches every one of us, the fear of aging. And I want just to say hello, everyone, before we keep on our discussion today. Hi, Jussara. Hi, Anahy.
Hi, hello everyone. It's good to be here with you again.
Hi, hello everyone. It's great to be here with you again.
Very good. So good to have you. So the question for us is perhaps, is old age something to fear or to celebrate, right? So I think it's important for all of us here today to uncover perhaps how aging, rather than marking this notion of ending of something, but it's rather a spiritual crescendo, right? It's this beautiful, perhaps, invitation to wisdom, reflection, self discovery. And it's really important that we think about or rethink or repurpose our ideas of growing older, or in most of us, caring for someone who is, to instead think about it as a perspective to awaken our spirit. So, Jussara and old age is often misunderstood. It is thought as a decline, suffering, right? And I do believe that spiritually and psychologically speaking, they represent something totally different, right? That they represent wisdom, fulfillment, and often the idea of achieving peace. Yet, fear of aging, because if you think about it, largely stemming from a materialistic view and even some cultural, societal misconceptions, associate aging with you're useless, right? You're frail, you're ill, you're losing things and eventually loss. So I'd love for us to get together because Joanna De Angelis reframes, reintroduces this idea of old age indeed as the opportunity for reflection, for growth, and for contribution. So I just wanted to know if perhaps we can talk a little bit about this myth of decline, right? What are the different dimensions to that? So maybe we can start with you. Sarah, can you talk about, from your perspective, what do you think about that? What are the spiritual perspectives that perhaps are brought to us, maybe Allan Kardec, Joanna de Angelis, on that myth of decline?
So, hello again. Hi, Marcia. It's been a while. Anahy. I'm so happy that we are here together again. But I think that the best way to demystify a myth is to bring facts.
Yeah.
And bringing facts meaning bringing, knowledge of things that we have that can prove us wrong. And there's no better way of doing that than mentioning our dear mentor to us all, Divaldo Pereira Franco. He passed at the age of 98. And up to the last moment when he still could, a few months back, he would be completely, dedicated to work and to serving humankind. And and I think, uh, I will not. I think it was William James that once said that to prove that you can find a white crown or a black crown, sorry, I don't remember quite well, you just have to find one, right? So to say that they do exist. So maybe many of us will say, oh, he was an exception. He was not. There are so many other names that we could add to this list, and so many others that we do not know. And sometimes people that are very close to us and in family relationships that get to old age, and we see how much they can be participating. So we are always very fast in labeling people and circumstances and ages. So the same way that we say the terrible tooth, or, a teenage phase, or, now you're 21 above is when you're going to be doing a lot of mess in your life. So we keep on labeling people according to circumstances and ages, and we completely just consider the fact that the spirit is ageless. And spiritually speaking, we don't know how old we are.
Yeah.
And that's why we will see so many contradictions when we are talking about weaknesses and frailty and character deprivation, because it has nothing to do with the phase or age that you are, but with what you are spiritually speaking. Having said that, of course, Joana de Angelis presents a lot of reasons why we can see patterns in the behaviors of those, the changes of age. And we, as women here, we can we can talk about that, hormones and everything. And so the changes in hormones, how it changes us, and all of that. And so that is going to be taken into consideration. But, those biological topics and etc., I'll leave to Dr. Anahy, right, to talk about. But I mean, just to start our conversation, I think, I wanted to remember the life of this great man, and to tell us that he is the white crow.
Yeah.
The white crow, right? That William James talked about, which one. We don't need more than one to prove
That's
that
beautiful.
they exist.
Yeah. And Jonah DeAngelis also talks a lot about the idea that I'd love for Anahy to explain further from a psychological or even scientific perspective. But she often talks about the idea that inner peace and wisdom really mostly blossom in later years, right? And it's all the fact of our ego stops identifying itself with appearance, social roles, etc. But Anahy, what are your thoughts? How can we demystify this idea of aging as a decline?
Just 1 second, please. I
Yeah,
found the quote,
sure.
okay?
Yeah.
By William James is in order to disprove the assertion that all crowns are equal, one white crown is sufficient.
Yeah. So not all are black, but just one proves that it's not the case. Very good. Thank you, Ju. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is a very, well, first of all, hi everyone. It's great to be back again. And that's we use in philosophy of science, Jussara, this concept of William James. There's a philosopher of science, Karl Popper, that he also talks about this. And we use, for instance, to when we research anomalous phenomena that we call mediumship, for instance, for science is one of the anomalous phenomena, like near-death experiences, phenomena that are not common, but they are frequent and they have to be studied scientifically. And nowadays we have ways to do that. So we say that for people, they say, oh, but that's so uncommon, for instance. Well, and it's not uncommon, but it's like the white crown,
Yeah. Yeah.
and science has to change. If you see, it doesn't matter all the principles that you try to explain that all crowds are black, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But if there's one, as you started saying, then you have to change the whole of science, because you have to understand rationally the facts of nature, and we are part of nature. So being saying that we are okay talking about aging, right? And the
Yeah.
psyche is also part of nature. So we
Yeah.
are part of nature.
Yeah.
And I wanted to bring something, because when Jussara talked about Givaldo, that we all were in a certain way, he was 98, right? And we thought that he was immortal in a sense. And of course, he is immortal. We are
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
immortals,
True.
in spiritually speaking. But he was so alive, so full of knowledge and wisdom, that it's kind of different wisdom from knowledge, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But and you could, when we were sitting by him and talking to him, and Jussara has done this many times more than I did, only in Congress or things like that, that I could talk to him personally. You could feel something that it's beautiful in aging. That is all the experience of the person, all
Yeah.
the knowledge from the experiences in this lifetime, turning into wisdom, right? Of course, he has had a life full of interconnections between realms, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
he was such a medium, and he could, of course, we know by his life and his experience and everything that he told about that sometimes it would be difficult for him, especially when he was young, to discern what was material and what
Yeah.
was immaterial, what was a person or a spirit, because he was seeing in out of space and time, and out of only the material realms. But all of us can do that, in a sense, as Jesus said, everything
Mm.
that I do, you can do, and even more,
Yeah.
right? Because we are spirits evolving. So to have in this lifetime that I think human beings, because of science that we were talking about, because of the development of our consciousness, we have not had, as humanity, the experience of aging as much as we are doing nowadays, because all the medicine and learning that we need to exercise, that we need to take care of the body. So this generation, that I think we are in a generation that it's in the middle here,
Mm-hmm.
we girls, right? But people more or less from our generation, this is a generation that has started paying attention in health,
Mm-hmm.
in physical health, in mental health, right? And this changes everything in terms of aging physically,
Mm-hmm.
because we are going to be healthier, we are going to live longer, and all this stuff. So I was thinking that when Jung had that wonderful, Jung had a great, of course, and very wise quotes and phrases, but he said that he never, in his experience, he never could something more or less like this. He said that in his experience, he never saw a patient of his get out of neurotic pattern, right, and get better from a psychoneurosis. That's the way he called.
Mm-hmm.
After middle age, but he said after 35 years old, that was
Mm.
considered in Jung time middle age,
Yes.
without spiritual knowledge and psychically developing a spiritual knowledge and way of living spiritually. But I remember this because he said, of course, he was talking about middle age, and he said 35 years old. So, of course, then you can understand that when Jung said that, it was last century, more or less in the middle of last century, people would live until 60,
Yeah.
more or less 60, 70.
Yeah.
Wow, it was something. And then we have a lot of people all over the globe living like Divaldo to 90 and much more, 98 and all. So it just there are two things that I would like to talk to you about that aging. Just consider that biologically, I was listening to another podcast with a medical person also talking, and I would love to see your opinion, Marcia and Jussara, uh, for one question that someone made him. But first of all, this guy, just remember, then I went back to medical school. Oh, yes, that's it. Because our body isn't it wonderful that from one cell, one single cell, developed and it multiplies. These cells multiply when we have the formation of the body, right? When it is
Yeah.
fertilized, the egg and all of that. So it divides itself and multiplies to around 30 to 40 trillion cells. Our bodies are constituted of 30 to 40 more or less trillion cells, depending on the size, gender, and all of that. And something that it's because people they don't think much about that, but all these cells, they specialize in different organs.
Yeah.
And we have like 200 types of different cells in our body, very, very specialized. And they know exactly what they are supposed to do. Exactly. Where does this knowledge come from? So, and also, if we are so afraid of aging, even biologically, and Joanna says because, well, people are afraid of dying, actually, as if you grow old, right? You
Yeah.
are going to be closer to death. But we can die any time in life cycle, she says, right? So why are we all always so afraid? And if you only consider yourselves that have such intelligence, and that science doesn't explain, this type of intelligence. And you have to connect spirituality to science the way that science it is, but it's changing, to understand that we owe too much or a lot to creation, right? To nature, to the creation, as the way that people want to call God or the creator. It doesn't matter, because it is such wisdom that is inside of ourselves, inside of our bodies. And just remember, there are billions of cells that die every day in our bodies, and they are substitute for other ones. Every day this is happening, daily it's happening. So why are we so afraid of the death? Because parts of us are dying every day. And if we understand biology, they are also being substituted by new ones. So
Yeah.
we are always dying, and in the death and rebirth, let's say, of our own biology. And psychologically, if the time of one lifetime is, Jussara was talking about that, is so short in a sense, comparing to the immortality of the spirit. We don't know our spiritual age, as Jussara was saying. So there's so many ways that we could think about all of this, but I think they converge to the same point, and that's what the question that I want to ask you guys. That this person that was interviewing this colleague, this medical doctor, he said, "Why do you think we age?" And of course, it was a kind of a young man, a young
Yeah,
medical. There was obstetrician. He was
yeah, yeah.
so, and he was talking about the wonder of the body, of of life growing inside a woman's womb. It was beautiful the way that he saw. But he talked about that. But then he stopped and he thought about the question: Why do you think we age, and then if it's going to get us closer to death?
I
And he
can
was
I
not
can
a
I
spirit.
can I take
Yeah,
a stab at this
go
because
ahead.
I'd love to hear Jussara speak of it, and I love the question, by the way. If we think now, as Jussara put it, right? We are immortal spirits. Therefore, there is no death, only the death of the physical body during this current existence and the next. But there's no death because we continue to live. So reincarnation really reframes the idea of aging altogether, right, Jussara? It is really aging is a platform for continuity versus the platform for ending. So, if that is the case, then the fear of aging is dissipated. Death, fear of dying is dissipated because it's not the end. And this is just a phase that our spirit must go through in its evolution, this path for evolution. So when we think about it, this is my way of thinking, Jussara and Anahy. Maybe you can bring additional thoughts or completely correct me. But if you think in terms of a spiritual view of that concept, is since reincarnation is an opportunity for our immortal soul, right, to return to a mortal experience and progress, evolve by addressing learnings that still has to go through, by correcting, say, errors, by expanding consciousness, which is a topic that is ever present in Joanna D'Angelo's work, right? We can also maybe think that aging is that preparation for our liberation from that time of learning, right? So by aging, we are perhaps softening our ties to this material life, to our personality, to our even our egoic constructs, so that then we can transition back to our real life. Does this make sense to everyone?
Well,
Yes,
I have
go
something
ahead, Susan.
smart to say.
Yeah.
And, and I proposed a question, from this colleague. I was
Mhm.
thinking, no pain, no gain.
That's good. Yeah.
You're not going to age. You're not going even to leave the womb, right? How
Yeah.
can it
Yeah.
be? So it's part of life. It's part of, the pain for us to gain from a totally spiritual perspective. The way the spirits tell us, it is not difficult to die. It's difficult to be born. But I don't think we should be getting there, digging too deep into the spiritual perspective, because I know many people that will be listening to us perhaps are new to this concept. But let's
Yeah.
just think about what we are talking about here. It's part of the experience of life, and I keep on telling younger people that I wish people could come to me when I were in my 20s and would say, this is the best time of your life, the best decade of your life. And then when I was in my 30s and my 40s and my 60s, 50s and 60s now, because we keep on longing for, what we don't have it anymore, and we forget to leave what we have, and to experience and to find joy in exactly the occurrences, the events that are happening to us now. And
Yes.
so now I know that when I'll go to the next decade, I will look back and say, oh my God, the last decade was okay. And here I was again complaining, not knowing, not learning. So whatever decade you are, enjoy it, because
Yeah.
this is it. This is what you're living. And I think that one of the things that can be really painful in us getting closer to our passing, because as it was said here, um, we don't know. It's like a Russian roulette, right? You don't know if you're going to die in your, young age, 20s, 30s, 70, 80, 90s, or 100.
Mhm.
We just don't know. It may happen to us at any time. And as one of the angels explained very, very beautifully here, it has nothing to do just with the decay of the body. There are accidents, there are illnesses, there are so many things that can happen to us and put us in this frail state that can lead to
Yeah.
our death. So, but I think that the more we approach what it's supposedly to be, very close to the end of your life, because like you were saying before, people have been waiting for Divaldo to die for at least a decade, right?
Yeah.
He
Yes.
was hanging in there, and I wish he could hang it longer, but that was not the case, and his spirit is free. But you see, I think it's us looking back and looking at our regrets. This is, I think, what makes us fear
Yeah.
death and fear that we are not going to be able to make amends for the regrets that we carry.
Yeah.
And we are wrong, because we will have still time in this life.
Yeah.
So for all those parents and children that do not speak to each other for many years, you still have chance to take a different path. You still
Mhm.
have chance to take care of each other. And it's not because we are at a certain point in our lives that we cannot go back and really reevaluate things and see what is going to be more difficult to us. So we see that a lot of the concerns of getting old comes from emotional issues,
Yeah.
right? How unresolved they are. Emotional in the sense that I could have done better. I wanted to be happier, and because I didn't have a certain professional stand, I couldn't be, or it can be different reasons in terms of emotions, not only family. But I think this is what really weighs on us and may
Mhm.
justify some of the erratic behaviors, because then we think, I will never ever will be able to change that, and this is where we are wrong. You can change it now, or you can change it another life, because
Yeah.
this is not the end, my friend.
I love it. Yeah. Any additional thoughts, Anahy?
Yeah, I think you well, I think you got it. This colleague said he was not a spiritist, right? But
Yeah.
he stopped and thought about, and he said, and he didn't even, I think, had exactly the concept of the spirit, us as immortal spirits. Of course, I think he, from what I understood from the interview, he was thinking that we are much more than we think we are, okay, than the ego and this and that. But he didn't have the concept, at least he didn't talk about the psychological concepts
Mhm.
and this way that we are thinking, that Joanna invites us to think of us in terms of the depth psychology and the spiritist psychology. us being spirits, not only an ego, right, but
Yeah.
having higher self, the self that Jung calls.
Yeah.
But he said that he stopped and said, I think we grow old because we want to grow old. We want
Uh-huh.
at some point that this life we know or we want at certain point to end this life. Not he was not talking about, someone that wants on purpose to end this life.
Mm-hmm.
So you could see that he kind of intuitively he had the concept that we have a higher self, that we are not only the ego striving
Yeah.
to do right or with these struggles of this life. And I thought it was so, so creative, his answer for a person that doesn't have, at least it seemed to me that he didn't have all these concepts of spiritism and
Mm-hmm.
spirituality in a way that we
Yeah.
evolved rapidly and all that. So I thought it was, well, that's very intuitive of him,
Yeah.
because in the spirit, as Jussara was saying, as a spirits, we know that this is even if the ego forgets,
Yeah.
and the ego is very much connected to the body and to the material life, of course, because it has to adapt to this life.
Mm-hmm.
But the higher self knows that we are here for some time, right? And even what Jussara was saying, that I totally agree, Jussara, that if we're too much in the ego, too much identify with the ego, thinking that you are only this personality,
Mm-hmm.
of course we all have sorrows for some, some struggles or some conflicts that we have had with people that we love, or some guilt because of whatever conflict that we think we haven't solved, in a well enough.
Mm-hmm.
If we have time enough, if we grow old, time for that wisdom that we were
Yeah.
talking, Divalda as an example, to develop within us in this lifetime, in this personality, then what Jussara said, it will come naturally
Yeah.
for all of us, because we have time, even if it's in the end of life, your
Yeah.
last time, you are in palliative care and
Yeah.
you have 1 week. But we know, seeing this kind of patients, that what they want more is not more life, is the opportunity to talk to some relative that they have, that they haven't talked for many years because they had kind of a fight, or the opportunity to say that they love someone that they couldn't do. So that's what is really important to the spirit. And I just wanted to tell you the concept of metanoia, that I
Yeah.
think in English is the same, metanoia,
Yeah.
that is the spiritual development, let's say, awakening, right? And it happens with all of us, and happens to all of us, especially, it's like a spiritual transformation, we could say. And it is related to this wisdom, to the time of living and having the experiences, right? And usually it starts in middle age, because when before that, the ego is trying to adapt to this life, to see which career it will take, if it's going to get married, have kids or not, what's going on with my life, my friends. So that's first part of life. It's all connected. Usually, of course, the self is always there, the higher self, but it's connected to the ego, and to the development of the ego, so that we can have maturity, autonomy, and all of that. But especially after middle age, in psychological terms,
Mm-hmm.
we have this spiritual transformation. And I think this, and I would love to hear you about that. and I think my feeling is that a lot of people are in this what we could call spiritual awakening.
Yeah.
They are interested. See our podcast, a lot of people are listening to it. So there are a lot of people talking about spiritual issues from different points of view, about psychology, right? So we could say that in the collective unconscious, we have this information that we are in an age of a very quick transformation of our consciousness and also development of our consciousness. So I think metanoia, to be able to live this stage of life of getting old, of aging, it's
Hmm.
something that we have an opportunity for the first time in humanity. And I
Yeah.
think it's such a privilege,
Yeah.
such a
Yeah.
privilege.
I,
What
I
do you think?
love I love that you brought the concept metanoia, right? And I think Carl Jung explores that a lot, right?
Yeah.
uh,
Hmm.
and I think it's quite interesting because perhaps that idea of this deep insight or awakening, not insight, but really spiritual, psychological, even philosophical awakening to what life is at some point. Um, Maybe we can do a parallel to what St. Augustine talked about, right? So long ago, which is that idea of what has my life been, maybe a life of, say, excesses or, right, or truly materialistic life, to the moment that, hey, I need to now get a fork in the road and start a new direction so that I can live deeply and authentically as much as possible. That's what comes to my mind. What are your thoughts, Jussara?
Actually, I was thinking about
Mm.
because when we talk here, there's so many thoughts that comes to our minds, and
Uh-huh.
the subjects are so rich, right? And
Yeah.
you will never tire to talk about and so many experiences. And so I was thinking about I forgot what is the third one. They say that you for you to mark your presence in the world, you should plant a tree, write a book, and what else?
Have a
Uh,
child. Have a child.
you know, the third one can be questionable. Thinking about the first few ones, they never say that you have to, to write a book at a certain age or to plant a tree. So you can do that when you're 10, or, if you are a prodigy, or you're
Yeah.
15, 20, or you can do that when you are 50 or 60. So I think taking that into consideration, the important thing is that you understand your reason here and you leave something behind. And so
Hmm.
I was thinking about Allan Kardec, for instance, the codifier of Spiritism. He wrote many books, but the one that really is going to be changing and is changing humankind is actually the Spirit's book, right? That he put into place when he was over 50 years old.
Hmm.
I was remember about John Wilcock, John. Oh my God, I forgot the uh, um, the precursor of Martin Luther King when he's going to come to me. The first one that translated the Bible into English and in the English language. He was
Hmm.
a professor and he became persecuted because he was bringing new ideas to the students at the time. And, and with this persecution, he had to be exiled. And then he thought, my life is over. I no longer
Hmm.
can be a professor. I can no longer do this and that. And the most important accomplishment of his life came exactly after all that happened, when he was old, when he put together a team to, to translate the John Wycliffe, exactly John Wycliffe, right? When
Mhm.
he translated the Bible, and he
Mhm.
was a theologian and reformer. So it's I mean, it's so amazing. And I think it's time for us in our society, and especially like you mentioned before, and because we are being more careful with this temple that we have, that is our physical body. And this is not just for shows, right? I mean,
Mhm.
many people I know that we will do that in order to prolong beauty and, attractiveness. But we are talking about healthy here, being
Yeah.
healthy.
Yeah.
And any of us actually are doing this transition regardless of your age, because we are realizing that there are healthier ways of living, of nourishing yourself. And just thinking about that, I felt like eating popcorn. What we are talking about, right? I said, "Oh, I want my popcorn." Anyway, so yeah, so little by little, baby steps, we get there, and
Yeah.
and yes, and so I think, looking at all that and all the perspective and everything that we can bring into the table, being older and having had more experience, more understanding, and this is where I think we have to stop, with this idea that the youth cannot bring anything because they are too young, and the old cannot bring anything because they are too old. So
Mhm.
if we consider 80 years of life, you are saying that you have perhaps 25 good years. You will be in your prime, maybe from 40 to 65, or for 35 to 60. And I
Yeah.
mean, we are discarding all the rest, and all the rest is really what matters, and where we are growing. In one sense, the first stage of our lives, we are growing materially speaking, because this is when we are really looking for material accomplishments, and even, the growth of our physical body. But when we come to, this third stage of life, this is where we have the opportunity of growing spiritually speaking. So the more you approach material retirement, the closer
Yeah.
you are to a spiritual freedom, to a spiritual
Yeah.
knowledge and understanding of life, to have a time for yourselves, to access everything, to, to make up, for the things that you couldn't do before. And this can be, charitable work. This can be being closer to your family. This can be, writing this book and planting this tree. And so
Yeah.
I think that we have to explore every possibility we have, and up to the last breath.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just am uh, speechless because I looked at the clock. We're about to get to the end of our time together, and I just wanted to maybe bring some myths. And by myth is our culture construct, as you mentioned before, Jussara. But when we reframe them, as Joanna D'Angelo brings to us in the idea, this discussion about fear of getting old, right? And the myth may be, oh, Marcia, you're going to become useless. And you just said, no, that's when I have time, as at an age to reach material retirement. I have time maybe to teach. I have time to reflect and go into my inner, inner discovery. If I have not had the time to intentionally do so, I have time to serve. Um, for some, they say, well, cognitively speaking, I am losing. My memory is not the same. I can't learn anymore. And we could reframe it as the fact that there is a lifelong neuroplasticity in addition to those spiritual insights that you get the older you are, right? And I think finally, as you mentioned, when you talked about it's a popular proverb or a cliche, right? The three things for your legacy: the book, the tree, and the child or the children. The idea that perhaps aging means that you're reaching a point where you're no longer valued or valuable, and and the reframing is exactly that. Yes, we can bring value by becoming that bridge to memories, to love, and even to those legacies that we're placing here. But before we close, I just wanted to ask both of you if you have any final remarks before we close our topic today. Anahy, you've been quiet for a little bit. Are there any thoughts that you can bring to us?
See here with the teachings of Joanna,
Mhm.
that it is our purpose also. And I think she's always behind her texts, always trying to help us to understand how it is so precious to have this lifetime here and now, as Jussara said. If it is, if I'm going to leave my tree here, plant a tree, if I'm going to write something, if I'm going to use my old age
Yeah,
to be talking with friends in a podcast, whoever is
yeah.
going to be listening, but exchanging ideas, right? Thoughts. So this is such a beautiful opportunity that we shouldn't miss it. And it's,
Mhm.
it's a blessing. And I just want to finish with one of Joanna's sentence about aging and
Mhm.
about life here, that she says physical life has an extraordinary meaning, which is that of inner enrichment, preparation for immortality, conquest of higher levels of thought and feeling towards plenitude.
Mhm.
So we have purpose in this life,
Yeah.
and our higher self knows that, as Joanna is, trying to help us to remember. And so, if of course we are not going to be able probably to achieve everything that we have planned spiritually before coming here, but if we can, just have this idea that we are here with such beautiful opportunity to be, the best that we can be, that we are able to be, and to learn and experience as much as possible, helping ourselves to grow and change, then of course the collective, we are going to need to make the collective unconscious richer with all these experiences and all the wisdom that we can bring to the collective. I
Yeah.
think it would
This
be
is
that.
beautiful. No, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. It's truly beautiful. Josada, do you want to bring any final thoughts?
I was just thinking that the outer garment doesn't represent you, who you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like we said before, the physical appearance, whether you are in your teenager years, adulthood, or um, old age, I mean, your spirit is. And we are at the stage that we are, closer to being that curious child. That's why I think it's very hard for you to get old, because your physical body do not represent your spirit, the eagerness, the curiosity, the inquisitive mind that you still have, and to be taken for granted just because of numbers. It's really sad. So we should not limit ourselves. And if the world is not prepared for that yet, you can be prepared. And so prepare yourself for old age, and do not care that much about those numbers, because they do not represent that much.
I love it. I love it. Let's be bold. Let's be brave, even if the world is not. I remember the title of a book by the tennis player, famous tennis player Billie Jean King, and the title was "Pressure is a Privilege." Right, and it stayed with me. I have the book, and as in like, what? I live a life of stress. Why are you saying pressure is a privilege? But anyways, what I would like to bring to us as we close is that we explore that idea that old age indeed is not punishment. It is a privilege. It is, I would say, oh, the time when our souls in this incarnation, in this physical body, with this series of circumstances that define our time on earth, that's when it shines, and it shines brightest, right? When we have the possibility to access our wisdom, and it is indeed our greatest talent, our greatest gift to us and to the world. So I say, let's all redefine what it means to all of us to grow old, and
Yeah,
perhaps,
I have to interfere because
yeah,
I have to tell the audience that you're
yes,
talking from experience because you have a father that is over 100 years old, right?
yes,
So
yes,
you know
yes.
what you're talking about. So you know what it is, um, to be able to
To
have that
shine.
see
Yeah,
and, and
yeah.
and understand his mind and all of that. So you're talking from experience.
And I have to say, I wasn't going to say, but I have to say, since you brought it up, Jussara, that when I turned 50, I grasped with the idea of aging in a very difficult manner. So I was turning 50, and I turned 50 at the time that he turned 90, so over a decade ago. And I remember, quite frankly, when I just came to him and I was like, "Oh, Dad, can you tell me anything?" And he said, "Oh, what I would give to be 70 again." Not 50, 70. So it really changed my own, preoccupation about becoming 50. Whatever. Genetically speaking, I probably will be not dead in the next few years, except for accidents, etc. But let's welcome that. So thank you for bringing that thought about my dad, my dear dad, and let us really embrace it, right? I want to say thank you both for being here and for such a positive and quite entertaining discussion on aging, or the fear that most of us have. And for all of you who chose to spend time with us today, if this is the first time that you listen to our program, please note that the Psychology and Spirituality talks are weekly, and as we mentioned many times, they are based on the works by Joanna de Angelis. I want to thank you, Anahy, thank you, Jussara, thank your sponsors, Mansão do Caminho, the International Spiritist Federation. I'm sorry, the I'm completely crazy here. The United States Spirits Federation and the International Spiritist Council, and AMI Brazil, which is the Brazilian arm of the Medical Spiritist Association. I hope all of you are well. Thank you so much, and see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.